Crazy but true story about the luckiest man to ever die. This man's name is Bill Morgan, and he was pronounced legally dead after getting in a severe car accident. After being in a coma for 12 days, his family removed life support and he survived. To celebrate, he bought a lottery ticket, scratched it, and won a car. A local news station was so impressed that they did a segment on him. They asked him to reenact it by scratching off another ticket. But this time he proceeded to win $250,000.
This man registered a piece of land containing $492 quintillion worth of plutonium. I'm going to share this true story in one quick part, so keep up. So where was this land? Right here. An asteroid named 433 Eros. 1 year later, NASA landed a probe on that asteroid. They said it was the first time they ever landed anything on an asteroid. Gregory Nemitz said they landed on parking space 29. And he sent NASA a $20 parking ticket.
Story just goes to show how dogs can truly see through people and really pick the good and the bad. Every morning, David walked his dog down by the beach. His dog, named Harlow, was one of the most friendliest, cutest dogs you could ever meet. She just loved people. But every morning, David and his dog would walk past this old man carrying a backpack. The old man always stopped and tried to say hello to the dog. But every time the dog would snarl and growl at the man, and he'd back away. David was surprised by this because his dog never barked at anybody. But day after day, the same thing just happened. David was so embarrassed, he tried to encourage his dog to make a bond with the guy. But as he bent down to pat the dog lunged at him and bit him. The old man turned and ran, and the dog tried to go after him. David was trying to hold onto his dog, but eventually the dog broke free from the lead. David finally found his dog about a street away, digging up the front yard of the man's house. Through the window, the man was saying, "Get your dog out of here." His dog dug up 8 bodies that morning. Police said he was walking the beach every day for new victims.
These photos are not at all what they first appear to be. Part 3. This appears to be a sightseeing photo, and it was taken in 2015 in Alabama on a hike. The girl in the picture is 18-year-old Jolie Callan, but it was taken by her ex-boyfriend, Lauren Bunner, right before he shot her twice and pushed her off the cliff. She texted her friend the night before, "If something happens to me, you'll know who I was with."
This true coincidence will blow your mind. Psh! On October 1st, 1987, a girl was born without legs, and she was put up for adoption by her family. She was eventually adopted by a new and loving family that named her Jennifer Bricker. Despite having no legs, Jennifer developed a love for gymnastics and began idolizing Olympic gymnast Dominique Moceanu. Jennifer developed an obsession for Dominique and began collecting all of her posters and watching all of her events on TV religiously. However, one day, Jennifer's adoptive parents came across her old adoption papers that had been lost. Incredibly, they discovered that Jennifer was actually related to Dominique. They were long-lost sisters.
The most genius secret messages sent by hostages that saved their lives. Part 2. In 2017, an airline attendant by the name of Sheila Frederick noticed that something fishy was going on her flight. There was a fairly old, well-dressed man sitting next to a teenage girl, and the man, according to Frederick, looked like a predator. Frederick's suspicions were only heightened when the man refused to talk to her. After seeing this, Frederick acted immediately and asked the girl if she needed to go to the bathroom. The girl obviously said yes, and when she entered the bathroom, there was a blank note sitting on the mirror. Frederick had left the note there for the girl to write if she needed help, and it turned out that the girl was actually a victim of trafficking. Upon reading the note, Frederick contacted the pilot immediately, who contacted the police. The girl was freed and the man was arrested.
Crazy true story about the man that raised his arm and has not put it down in over 40 years. This man's name is Amar, and he has kept his arm above his head for over 40 years. He decided to raise his arm and keep it raised to disconnect him from all luxuries of the mortal life. He said that he dealt with extreme pain when he first raised the arm, but now cannot feel it at all. The muscle in his arm has atrophied so much that he couldn't use it if he wanted to. His arm is permanently stuck in this position and will continue to be for the rest of his life.
The most genius secret messages sent by hostages that saved their lives. Part 8. In 2018, Jeremy Floyd took his girlfriend hostage for 2 days while possessing a firearm. Floyd's girlfriend was eventually able to convince him that their dog had an ear infection and that they had to go to the vet to get it checked out. I'll let this video tell the rest of the story.
Hospital, the woman came up with a plan. She went to the bathroom and hastily wrote a note on a ripped piece of paper. She then slipped the message to the receptionist as she walked back towards Floyd in the seating area. The note said, "Call the cops. My boyfriend is threatening me. He has a gun. Please don't let him know." The receptionist showed the note to a colleague in secret, and they called the police shortly after. Floyd was soon arrested by the police, and a firearm was found on his person. The woman was treated for the injuries she had sustained during this horrible experience.
Coincidences you have to see to believe. This photo was taken in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. There's a family and one tourist who they don't know. But 7 years later, this woman and this random tourist got married. It was only when they were looking through old photos that they realized this coincidence. One day a fisherman dropped his wallet into the sea, but amazingly 20 years later he fished out his wallet. Everything was still inside, including his money and driver's license. One day some miners were clearing some rocks. That's when inside a brick they found a Nokia brick. It seems the phone is living up to its name.
He was in Thailand and was 100% innocent, but cops brought him in and showed him a photocopy of a gun and then told him that if he didn't bribe the cops $13,000, he'd be in Thai prisons for the rest of his life. After years, Benny Mawaf eventually fought his way out of prison using his smarts, and I'm going to share this all in one part, so keep up. He knew he was innocent, so he refused to bribe the cops. Instead, he hired a lawyer. But after months of being in a Thai prison and being pressured by his lawyer to pay the cops, he decided to pay. But then his lawyer stole all of his money and his car. Wait till the end to hear what he eventually did to that lawyer. At this point, he realized he had to put matters into his own hands, so he learned how to read and write Thai, and he eventually got his Thai law degree. And throughout the next 9 years, he eventually sued prisons to improve his quality of life. He even one time made a prison bring in better TVs for the prisoners. His fellow inmates loved him, but the warden hated him. Matter of fact, one warden even said that if a prisoner killed him, there'd be no consequences. He fought for himself and sued hundreds of corrupt lawyers and cops along the way. And that first lawyer that stole from him is now disbarred and selling noodles at a kiosk.
Have you ever wondered how easy it is to get rid of a body? Well, meet Concrete Ken. You see, Ken owned and operated a concrete company for more than 35 years. But it wasn't until his dying day that Ken told police about his secret. You see, police were investigating 2 bodies that had been found in the demolition of a building. The building was built more than 25 years ago, and after they knocked it down, they found 2 bodies in the concrete slab. You see, Ken's company was the one that poured the concrete. But what was really scary is what Ken revealed next. He told them there wasn't one job in his 35 years that didn't include a body in the foundation slab. Ken revealed he was paid by a massive cartel for decades to get rid of the bodies. And in what better way than in the foundation of pouring the slab of a house, or a building, or even the roads we drive on. What's even more frightening, he said, I know at least 10 other companies that do the exact same thing as me. He said it's beautiful, these bodies are around us everywhere we go, and we don't even know. So it makes me wonder, does the house you live in sit on a concrete slab?
This woman's husband was killed while she was at the gym. The cops had called her and told her she needed to come home immediately. And when she did, the cops gave her the sad news that her husband had been killed by a hitman. Afterwards, they took her down to the station to ask her a few questions to find out who could have possibly done this. But something happened while they were at the station. Her husband walked into the room she was waiting in. She was so surprised that he was still alive. But then the cops came and arrested her. And they arrested her because she was the one who tried to hire a hitman to kill her husband while she was at the gym. She had everything planned out, but she made a critical mistake. The hitman she hired was an undercover cop. The cop set up a fake crime scene to fool her into thinking her husband had actually died. And her crying here, it's all fake. She's not actually crying. And in 2016, she was sentenced to 16 years in prison. And as for her husband, well, he got remarried to somebody who doesn't want to kill him. The full YouTube video has over 26 million views. For more crazy stories, follow my Instagram.
In 2008, in Fukuoka, Japan, a man noticed things were going missing inside of his house, and he thought he was the victim of frequent burglaries, so he set up a security camera. That's when he captured something moving in the house, and believing it was a burglar, he called the cops. But when they showed up, all the doors were locked, and when they looked inside the house, they didn't find anything. Until they opened up a closet. Curled inside was a 58-year-old homeless woman named Tatsuko Horikawa. She had been living with him for almost a year.
This is why you should be careful what you put in the mail. In 2015, a man was asked by his neighbor to collect his mail while he was gone for a few weeks. A few days later, a large package arrives on his neighbor's front porch. The man can barely lift it, but gets over to his garage where he accidentally drops it and hears something break inside. Hoping his neighbor would think the damage occurred en route, he closes his squeaky garage door and forgets about it. But over the next couple of days, whatever was in that package started to smell so bad that he decides to open it up. Inside were 2 very important finds: his neighbor, who was dead, and a camera that was still recording. The police bring the man in for questioning and show him what was on the camera inside the box. It starts with his neighbor talking to the camera about how excited he is to mail himself home for his YouTube channel.
Then police fast forward to the very end where they see that the neighbor is now sleeping in the box and then suddenly gets dropped and you hear a crack and that's his neck breaking. And then you hear a squeaky garage door close.
Alright, check this out. This is crazy, right? So this guy over here, he's minding his own business, and then this guy comes out of nowhere, right? And then apparently he said the guy told him, look behind you, and then he dodged that thing and he looked and there was no one there. And he said this in a
news you actually want to hear. Banksy, the anonymous street artist, had his painting self-destruct after it was sold for $1.4 million. Moments after it was declared sold, jaws dropped as the painting started moving down the frame. Banksy had installed a hidden shredder that ensured his finishing touches would be put on the piece. Now I can't tell if this man is a genius or if he's just plain evil.
Without a doubt, this is the closest human we have to Thanos. Genghis Khan dominated. He slaughtered 40 million people, or 11% of the human population, and created one of the largest empires in history. At 10 years old, this little savage kills his own brother for not sharing food with the rest of the village. Khan then eradicates the 12 million person Khwarezmian Empire, saving no one, but using women, children, and animal skulls to build massive pyramids to flex on the other empires. Khan ultimately died, but at his funeral, all 2,000 guests were murdered to secretly hide his burial location.